Hello, hello, hello. How are you all? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for whatever parts of the world you're watching this. We just want to welcome you to another show, another episode of My Take. We're really glad that you joined in today, and we have a very, very special conversation. But first of all, my name is Tosin, and with me are wonderful, wonderful, beautiful sisters. Can you all introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Faye. Good to be with you all today.
Hi,
Hello, Lola here.
hello, nice to be here.
And Dami?
Hi everyone, my name is Dami. It's lovely to see you all again.
All right, all right. My Take is a forum where we ladies we just hang out. There are many issues around the world, and we try to tackle them one episode at a time. Sometimes episode spills over into two episodes. So depending on what is happening around the world, that's what we want to address. In today's episode, our goal is to promote a culture of love, compassion, as well as truth and candidness. And today's episode, because a lot of children around the world are going back to school, so we have said that we'll call this show going back to school COVID in the COVID world. So we want to address different things, not just COVID in particular, but also things that affect children going back to school. So that's what this topic is about. So in the first, I remember in season one, the second episode, we talked about how COVID came and changed our lives completely. We had no clue about what this COVID thing was. So we were cautioned to quarantine at home. We were stripped of so many things, the social aspect, we couldn't hug, we had to distance ourselves and all of that. But now with the vaccine coming out and different measures put in place, last year most of our kids, did fully virtual because we didn't understand what we were dealing with. Now the world kind of has a little bit more knowledge. I'm not going to say all the knowledge, but a little bit more knowledge about what's going on. So now they're telling us that they want our children back in school. So we want to address this. We want to first of all tackle this. So some of the schools are offering I think some of the schools are offering full back in person, and some are still doing a hybrid, and some are doing full virtual, but I don't think that many. So I just want the ladies to share what their schools are offering for their children and what decisions they took and why they took those decisions. So I'll start with Lola. Oh, we can't hear you, Lola.
My apologies. I have a kid in college, kid in university, a kid in high school, secondary school, and a kid in middle school. And all of my kids are back in school fully in person. Of course, the older two are vaccinated. That was part of my decision I felt comfortable them going back to school. School is fully open. The one in university, the school required that all the students be vaccinated in order to come back in person. So that also made me feel better about that. My youngest one is 11 and she's not qualified for vaccination yet, but we still, by faith, we allow her to go back to school. And of course, we instructed her that she must follow all protocols that we were following before vaccines were given. So she still wears her mask. She's probably the only one of very few, because she's in a mask optional school. She's one of the very few that still wear the mask and in school. She still has to sanitize her hands all the time. All the precautions we took before, she still takes it. So that makes me feel a little bit better. But I know when they were virtual, my kids were all virtual last year. I mean, they did well to the glory of God, but it was a struggle, as many of you know. My son, you can see him visibly in his room, sinking into the chair, disconnected from whatever is happening in the Zoom. And they were more than happy to be back on in person. So it's a very personal decision, I'm sure, for many, because I have family members also that have decided, nope, we're homeschooling, they're staying home. and we're equally as supportive of each other.
Okay, could you just share with us what part of the world you are in?
I'm in the U.S. In Georgia, and if you're following U.S. and COVID in Georgia, you know that we are one of the ones that are the troublesome ones. The troublesome ones in the States, we have very low vaccination rates, very high COVID rates. So it is really by faith that you're really sending your kids to school. And I think I made up my mind very early on that, look, I will do all that I'm supposed to do, all that I can do in my own power, but ultimately it's God that has my children and is protecting my children. So,
all right. Thanks, Lola. What about you, Dami?
Hi. Okay, so I think the landscape for us in the UK, so I live in Kent in England, in the southeast of England. Our landscape is very different from yours in the US. First of all, I think I want to preface this by saying that when we locked down. Like you guys in the States, your lockdown was very wishy-washy. Our lockdown was a thorough, you are sitting home, you can't even go to the stores to buy, like you're not going out, you can just about open your window to allow fresh air in, like we were locking down. And I think that to an extent, so we did that for like, since March 2020 till about December 2020. And I think that really went a long way in helping us and how we were able to cope with the pandemic. Our kids have been back, at least for my kids in Kent, we've been back in school since January 2021. Homeschooling, unfortunately for us, is not a big thing in the UK. And it really wasn't an option that was set on the table. It was the schools are taking the precautionary methods. They're putting precautionary measures. Everything is in place. Teachers will do what they need to do. They'll be tested twice or 3 times weekly. Hand sanitizer and mask wearing, all the good stuff that we know. And I think for us here, because of the culture that we have, kids have to go to school. That's what we know. We've never been giving another option of, your kids stay at home. And I think when the schools opened in January, just like Lola said, we parents were done. The kids were done. We were done. We were at the gates the night before. Like, you're getting in first. You're having first dibs at the seats. I'm not allowing them tell us we're closing. You're going in. And I think our kids fared well. The kids they were ready to go back. But I think also we had done a lot of communicating with the kids and they understood what was going on. Obviously I work in public health, so I kind of had good knowledge and I was able to, to pass that on to my kids. But generally for us, we didn't really have an option and we had to send our kids into school. Vaccinating our kids has only just begun. It has only just rolled out in the last probably 2 to 3 months. It's not that the uptake isn't as much or isn't as high as we would want it to be because of the unknown, what we don't know, the fear of that. But generally for us, it's been a totally different vibe. Our kids, I think, have predominantly felt safe going to school. And I think we, the parents, were just like, listen, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So just go.
Thanks, Dami. Thank you so much. Shil. Okay, I think, Shil, would you like to share with us?
Okay. Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm speaking from Nigeria, right? Okay. So in my own children's school, right, we had no option. It was in person. But of course, from other schools in Nigeria here, they did hybrid, and all that. But for my own children's school, it was in person. I was a bit skeptical, at the beginning. So what I did was to go to their school to check, whether they have the protocols in place, and all that, and if it was safe, And then, of course, I started pumping my children with a lot of multivitamins and all the zinc and all the, medications that they said we should. And of course, they had already learned all the measures, sanitizers, face masks, and all that. But, children will be children. They leave the house with the face mask and come back with it in their school bags, their pockets. And I think just like that, no, I think it was Lola that said that we of faith, as well. But somehow God has helped us in Nigeria. I don't know what exactly is happening. Maybe it's bad statistics. Maybe it's truly that it's not really affecting us as much, But that in person for me, it's better because when last year, so a lot of schools did hybrid, and the performance was very bad generally, and it was a lot of for us parents. When there was total lockdown at the beginning, when people were trying to understand what exactly was happening last year, we were home for a while. I didn't find it funny at all. But when they now said, okay, school to resume, I was happy to send them to school. It was too stressful, you know. No, seriously speaking, and my kids are in primary school, so they are so young. To get them to even go to alone, you have to pull the no. I was so happy. I was so happy when they got in. So, but they learned everything what they were supposed to do. I went to school to check, and it was okay, really. It was, and they've been fine ever since.
Okay, thank you, Faye.
So for me, I experienced COVID in 3 different countries. First of all, we started off in Nigeria, then went to the US, and now I'm in the Gambia, and it's been
Hello.
very interesting. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, we can, yes.
So in Nigeria, we had, of course, the virtual, and then my son, who was finishing secondary school, we had to really figure out, because we were in the US and doing virtual. We left Nigeria, went to the US, we're doing virtual, and we had to figure out, okay, what next when the school decided that they were going back to physical. So we had to now decide, that he would go back to Nigeria and finish the physical. So really at that time, it was like the grace of God, right? And then he ended up going to the US for university. And yeah, he's in Texas, which is another one competing with Georgia for worst states in terms of handling COVID. But the good thing is his school was very proactive in terms of COVID. I mean, in terms of COVID, they didn't make them compulsorily vaccinate, but actually over 90% of the students have vaccinated. So what they're doing now, we didn't even get a choice, is really a hybrid. What they finally decided is the larger classes will be virtual on campus still. The students are still on campus, while the smaller classes, they get to do in person. So I feel like that's the best of both worlds. They're young, most of them are vaccinated now. So I'm quite comfortable with that. And of course, then, the rest is to God. My son here with me in the Gambia, he's in middle school. Actually, since we came to the Gambia, the school has been in person since last year. And I have to say I was relieved, because the virtual was not working with my middle schooler. It made me become the teacher. And yeah, even if homeschooling is not an option for me, I mean, it's not an option. I just thank God for teachers. I bless them. This pandemic has made me so grateful for teachers. So, he's back to school, and luckily he got vaccinated. Probably the only the young child vaccinated in this whole Gambia, because nobody in his class is vaccinated. But we're rolling with it and just praying that God will continue to keep all these kids safe.
Amen. So for me, I would say that I didn't mind the when we were all quarantined in the house, because my baby is 11, so they don't need me for much. You understand what I'm saying? They know how to cook their food, they know how to do stuff, and I enjoyed the fact that I didn't have to wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning having to get them together or whatever. I think my kids fared well with virtual. But after a while, my son started cutting corners, whereby he will be playing a game on the table while the class is going on. So my college bound now, but when she was finishing her 12th grade, because I'm in the U.S. in Maryland, when she was finishing, she got the opportunity to go back, because they gave the hybrid, you can come in and all of that. So I told them, first quarter, let's watch their protocols. If everything seems well, then I'll encourage you to go for the second quarter. So she went in November of last year. So she got a full experience of 12th grade. My now middle schooler went in March. She went in March. And then my son, when I found out what he was doing, I kicked him out of the house and said, you got to go out. You got to get out. So basically, they are back, all of them. The first two are vaccinated. He's not, because he's 11. You have to be 12 in America to be vaccinated. So, I mean, I wasn't really done with that style because my children were faring well. And also, they continued their sports. So they were still going to sports, so they still had interactions with kids and things like that. So they fared very well until, my last started acting up. But so yeah, they're back now. And like Lola said, it's with God at the end of the day. So whatever decision you make, it's still God. So, so Lola,
we lost Faye, but she'll come back soon. Absolutely, and thank God we had options. We have options. Many countries, like you guys have said, they don't have the options. They don't have, the option whether in person or virtual. And one thing we know for sure is that this COVID pandemic has upended our normal world as we know it. And even us as adults, we're reacting to it. We have, we're more stressed, we're more worried, we're more anxious. Some of us are aware of it, that, the effect on us mentally, emotionally, physically. I mean, I know I've gained the COVID-20. Yeah, it's still growing.
And 40.
So we know the effect it's had on us as adults, but I don't know if people are aware the effect it's having on kids. And on them emotionally, on them physically, on them mentally, on them spiritually. What effect is it having on them? Even now, as they're, at least when they were home, we were all doing it together, right? Now they're back in school. They're back in school, and the normal things is now amplified. You're like you said, if you wear mask, problem. If you don't wear mask, problem. They're facing those things at school. If just different things that they normally go through in school is now amplified because we're in a world that is, a lot of things are going on. So I want to ask you parents, like how are you, or how can you prepare your children mentally, emotionally, spiritually for learning? They're going back to school. What can you do as they're going back to school? Some people have started going back to school. We're about 2.5 weeks in right now. Some will just be going back. I know in the US, will just be going back next week. I don't know when, like you said, you guys have been back in a while. How are you doing it? What has changed in terms of how you relate to your kids on the spiritual, mental, physical level? And how are you preparing them for learning in that environment? Want to start with you, Dami?
Right. Okay. That's such a very, very good question, Lola. And I think what the pandemic showed me and my husband was it shone a really bright spotlight on our parenting, on our relationship in front of our kids, right? On our communication in front of our kids, on our spiritual life in front of our kids. So everything was spotlighted in front of our kids. And I learned very, very early on, and my husband and I had that conversation very early on, that now the spotlight is on us and we need to model what it is that we expect from our children, right? We need to be the example that we want our children to emulate in this time. And I know for me, right at the inception of the pandemic, of the lockdown, I really struggled, and I'd never struggled with anxiety my entire life. Like, I'm one of those people who would, I would tell you I'm very pragmatic, I'm very proactive, I think things through, I'm very detailed, I plan. But anxiety came on, and my kids could see me literally struggling. And that was just because I had all this information. I was right in the thick of, like the COVID response for London. That was my project that I was working on. So this information was hitting hard and fast. And I had to quickly decide with, obviously with my husband, that we need to communicate, and we need to communicate to our children the truth that they can handle, the truth that they need to know for the different ages that they're at. And we need to decide as a unit how we're going to react to that truth. And we need to decide as a family, as a unit, whose truth are we going to stand on and whose truth are we going to believe in. And we needed to model that for our kids. So when we did our family devotional time, when we did our our daily prayers and stuff, and we did our Bible studies, it was really for us picking on characters in the Bible. Because I've got kids, my oldest is 14, and I've got twins. I've got 14, almost 12, and twins who are 8. And we had to quickly look for characters in the Bible that we would use to show them that yes, you don't know what's happening. We always went back to the story of Moses and what he did in Egypt, and how through that process God was able to show himself faithful. So we use that as a foundation for for the discussions we had with our kids. My teenager, so my 14-year-old, struggled the most at right at the beginning. Unfortunately for him, the day before the day the lockdown started, we had no notice. We literally went to work, went to school, came home, and we heard the news at 6 p.m. or maybe it was 7 p.m. that lockdown, no one should leave home from the next day. He had lost his mobile phone at school. He doesn't have any clue about backing things up to any cloud. Everything he had was stored onto the phone, all his friends, all his contacts. And plus he'd been naughty at home, so we're taking away his Xbox and his PlayStation, which was the other way he could communicate with his friends. So it was almost like he was literally cut off from his social network or social group, as it were. And it didn't really, I didn't pick up on that because I was dealing with my own stuff. So 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks went by, and he really started to struggle. My son would sit in his room and cry all day. This is a teenage child, would cry all day, all night. And we thought he was acting out. You're not the only one who's, how we are now. You're not the only one dealing with it. Look at your sister. Look at this. And it took one early morning around 5 a.m. He came into our bedroom and he woke us up and he told us, and he said, "Mom, Dad, I'm really struggling. I haven't spoken to my friends in a month. I haven't seen anybody in a month. I don't know what's going on. I can't." And as he was saying it, he was crying. And, and I tell you, it broke us. And we realized, okay, we need to, this truly is affecting them, and it's not just affecting us as adults. So, so that became part of our conversation, our daily check-ins with the kids. How are you guys feeling? What's going on? And we needed to, do like the little pulse checks with our kids throughout the day, throughout the week, to ensure that they were fine. I think 2021 has been a lot better because we're used to it now. We're kind of, we're riding out that wave, and we're kind of used to what to expect. But I think at the early stages for us, it was tough on the kids. But what we found worked for us was communicating, talking, ensuring that the environment at home was conducive for them to feel comfortable, that, it was a safe space, as we always talk about safe spaces for the kids. I'll stop there.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I wonder if, and I don't know what you guys think about that, about how the older kids dealt with it versus the younger kids. And if it's as easy to pick up anxiety, worry, and stress in little kids as that may not be able to articulate anything, as well as maybe the older kids. And older kids already struggle in that area. So Cheryl, you have younger kids. How did they deal with this whole COVID and transition and being in school? Were you able to pick up anything different, or were they able to articulate anything to you? For Cheryl that has the younger kids, yeah. Can you hear me? Oops. Oh, we lost her. All right. Well, while we're waiting for her,
I'll say for my kids. Okay. So Ore, my first, she had a lot of friends graduating in the pandemic. So they were having a lot of outdoorsy type things. So she's still connected with friends, but my younger two didn't have as much, so they stayed at home. So their reaction was different, even though they didn't struggle as much, but you could see where they were like, okay, she's always going out, she kept her social connection. And then I think the last my baby, he could connect with his friends through his whatever that thing they play. But my middle girl, I had to watch her seriously, because she would be in her room for hours, and I was like, nope, you're not, you're gonna sit next to mommy. So I was really on top of her because of the things I was hearing. So I was really on top of her. I was like, Ebon, there's no way we'll be best friends if you don't talk. I need to know. If you call myself You say I'm your best friend. We gotta talk. You gotta, So I would draw things from her, and then volleyball makes her light up. So I would take her to volleyball. I signed up for every volleyball there was from the beginning of in the entire pandemic. There was no day, there was no period that she missed volleyball, because it wasn't about keeping her with the sport, was her connecting. So I was very intentional about that. So I don't know if
Sharon, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome back.
Sorry,
So
I just dropped off as I heard my name. Okay, so you're talking about kids and how they coped, right? Mentally, physically, emotionally. Okay, now for me, I have very little kids. 5 at that time, they were 5 and 7. For them, they were just excited. They were just excited. They were not going to school. They were excited. They were seeing mommy and daddy together. Everybody was home. They were eating and eating. So for them, though there was a lot of noise about, they kept watching TV and all they could hear was sanitize this, wear face mask. In fact, they even had personal videos of their own of what to do. So the excitement was just excitement galore for them, for my own kids, right? But we needed to explain to them, what exactly was happening, and then make them understand that it was worldwide. There was a lot of education, from our own end to them, because we had to make them understand, even to the point of whenever we went out, they understood that you can't just shake anybody anymore. You can't just hug. In fact, when somebody brings out their hand, they'll first look at me to say, doesn't this guy know that there's COVID? So we had to really educate them, because it was more of excitement than anxiety. They had no anxiety whatsoever. They were just happy that they were eating, no teachers on their neck. It was just when we started the online classes, that it was a bit stressful, for them. But I think I agree so much with what Dami was. I think she actually read my mind. Having an open conversation, with older kids, even younger kids, just to feel their pulse, to know whether they have worries, about all what's happening. Them being honest on the consequences, because we've learned of a lot of people that are dead. They could also know some of them, learn the consequences, but assuring them that if you keep to protocols as much as possible, and then staying prayerful and using medications where possible, staying at home if possible. Because for me, my kids, after a while, they want to go out. Mommy, we want to go out. Mommy, we want to go out. It was that was one of the struggles I had as well. Keeping them in, and then they're like, once you step out, they're following you. So I struggled a little with that, but I think with time, they got to understand. Even now, that a lot of things are a bit relaxed. We're in Nigeria, so many things. In fact, we forget. You go to the market and you're like an alien. You're the only one using mask in Nigeria, or sometimes in churches and all that. You have to just keep reinforcing and reinforcing, making them understand that you can't just go out anyhow any longer, and staying prayerful. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. And I know for my son, who doesn't talk much, I didn't realize he was worried when the COVID thing started, because he's kind of a cool cat. You don't really know what's going on, but he was actually worried about the COVID, and he was paying attention to the news. He was eating that information up and being super aware of, what the statistics were saying and what's happening. And, he had a lot of internal worry. My daughter, the youngest one, on the other hand, like you said, was just on YouTube. She just disconnected from the world. It was go to school. As soon as school was over, YouTube videos, mindless, just things. And we had to really curtail that. And initially we were annoyed. YouTube, is it YouTube? All the thing. But we realized later on that that's how she was coping. each child was coping with things different ways.
Differently. Yeah.
And we had to, instead of getting upset with her, we had to exercise a lot of patience, a lot of understanding, a lot of grace, even academically, some kids, their grades dropped or they were struggling more to get the grades that they were normally getting.
Yeah.
And instead of us losing patience and being annoyed, we had to kind of exercise a lot of grace and like you guys have said, communication, talking to them, understanding. We know this is tough. How is it affecting you? So, yeah.
I mean, I think on the side, we had, my older one definitely took it harder. I mean, in the beginning, he kept saying, Mommy, I can't believe that this is happening in my lifetime. Yeah. This kind of big events are supposed to be historical, not in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I think he was definitely really affected by what was going on, because he just felt like, he hadn't really experienced anything like this. And, this was his 18th year anyway. But one thing that really happened, I have a testimony, because I was the most stressed out of everybody. I even was having my asthma that I had as a child was recurring from nowhere, like all sorts of things were happening. But we had a Bible study one time. We were going through this devotional, and it said that we should guide our kids through hearing from God. And they gave us an exercise to do that. You should be quiet as a family for a few minutes, and then be intentional about trying to hear what God is saying. And after the exercise, share what God was saying. And when we were about to do this exercise, I was like, hey, God, these children, you see they didn't hear. God will not, God, please talk to them, just so that they will see that you speak to people. So I was kind of nervous. I heard God tell me, he said, like, it will be well, all is well. So that's what I heard, right? So after the exercise, we asked the kids, did you hear anything? My other one was like, no, I didn't hear anything. My younger was, no, you didn't hear anything. I was like, I said, I heard all is well, Sha. And then my other one said, I actually did hear it will be okay. And I was like, so what do you say? He was like, I wasn't sure if but it was really reassuring, because we were like, let's hold on to that word for this COVID. It will be okay, so we always are referencing back to that. But it's a challenge. My younger one was also doing YouTube therapy as well. And it was not, but he seemed to be more laissez-faire about it than the older one. So anyway. I think at this point,
can I just add something to that quickly?
Yes.
I just wanted to also say, because there was another spin to that with the conversation that we were having with our kids. So we know that COVID, or the whole pandemic worldwide, has become a political issue. And I'm married into a heavily political family, and we always have this political debates amongst ourselves within my husband's family with his brothers, and our kids get drawn into that conversation. And it was just a point that you made, Lola, about affording yourself and others grace. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I made a point to discuss with my kids was respecting the wishes of others. Mm. So we talk about vaccination. We don't, like, as a family, we've made it a point. We don't ask people. We don't, when we go visiting or when we bump into friends in the shops or wherever, we don't bring up the whole COVID conversation. Have you gotten the vaccine? Are you getting the vaccine? We don't. As a rule, my kids know. Number one, it's not our business to know what other people are choosing to do or not do. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we're not going to judge others based on whatever decisions they make. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to also, make that a point, that if we're not having those conversations with our kids, we need to also add that to whatever conversations we're having. That yes, you do you, as they say, and do what works for you and what works for your family, but also gracefully respect the decisions of other people, what they choose, whether they want to vaccinate their kids, whether they want to be vaccinated or not be vaccinated. Like, my husband has refused to be vaccinated, which initially I was up in arms, being a public health specialist, and I'm leading this march of let the entire world be vaccinated, and then I'm in bed with somebody who tells me vaccination, if I grow an extra leg or an extra, you know what I'm saying? And I had to quickly say, okay, Dami, you need to practice what you preach. Okay, I will respect your wishes. And we went to Spain, and traveling internationally with someone who is not vaccinated is a whole situation. Like, a whole situation. Everything they need, the paperwork, the testing, that, you know, his testing alone cost us like 300 quid. Like it was ridiculous. And I'm not going to sit there and go, you see, because of you now we're paying an extra 300 pounds. I had to take it gracefully and respect that decision. So it's about teaching our kids also the fact that, you know, people would, you know, make decisions that are different from yours, respect it and move on, and, you know, and don't hold it against them.
Yeah.
You're a bigger person than I, Damia. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, so we really explored COVID and the ramifications. But, you know, before COVID existed, we were still having, you know, challenges with our children, right, in terms of school and what have you. So maybe we can spend a little bit of time exploring these other issues. One thing that comes up a lot is the issue of bullying, right? So one thing we wanted to get a sense for, what should a parent do if they find out that their kids are being bullied, right? And even on the flip side, what do you do if you find out that your kid is the bully? I think, so I think it would be good to explore that, because it does happen. It does impact, you know, kids very negatively. So maybe we start with Sheon. Well, you have smaller kids, but still, you know, you notice these things even as with the younger kids. So maybe I'll start off with you, Sheon, on how you handle these types of issues.
Okay. So if you have a child who is being bullied, of course, every parent will be upset, will be pained to find out that your child is being bullied, you know, and you'll be wondering, you know, why. So I think, first of all, we need to find out, well, first of all, as a parent, calm down, because we can actually overreact. You know, we can get so angry and then overreact. So first of all, it's advisable for parents to calm down first, you know, and internalize the whole thing, and then call the child, make the child feel secure enough to be able to speak, you know, and talk about it. Because a lot of children that are being bullied, you know, sometimes they are threatened and then they will not want to speak. You know, sometimes they might not even want to identify who the bully is and all that. So make sure, you know, try and make the child a bit comfortable. Now, as my job, I'm a counselor, professional counselor, you know, so I see some kids, you know, have this kind of issues. So the first thing, for some of them are so scared, you know, that they're not able to speak. So first of all, make the environment comfortable for them to be able to speak, and then report the case to the authorities. Whether in school, because it doesn't happen only in schools alone. Anywhere where you have gathering of, you know, kids, it could be church, it could be school, it could be anywhere that they go to. It could be even their playground, their football field, their whatever, you know. So any authority that is there reports, you know, the case to the person, and then let the child understand that this bullying thing is not about them, you know. So because a lot of children actually feel guilty, you know, they feel that they are at fault, they are the reason why they're being bullied, you know, and then try and build the child's confidence, you know, help them to highlight their strengths, you know, build their self-esteem, because a lot of children lose their self-esteem in the process. You know, a lot of children are hopeless, you know, and then you just find out that sometimes they don't even want to go to that place anymore. School, church, start hearing children say, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go there. There's a reason. Bullying might be one of them, and it's one of the very rampant reasons that we hear. Then help them to be able to manage their emotions, because sometimes bully victims become bullies. You know, become bullies. Sometimes they become angry, you know, and they could internalize that for so long and start displaying all sorts of behaviors, you know, and all that. Then, if possible, contact the parents of the bully, you know, to let them know. If authorities are not taking responsibility as much as they're supposed to, we find out that it continues, you know, and then seek the help of a professional counselor where maybe you've done everything and it's still not working, you know, for the child.
You're muted, Faye.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying, wow, that I was just taking notes. I mean, I think we have to list out the things that you said at the end of the the session. But let me just quickly hear from Dami. Dami, what are your thoughts on this? Bullying, being bullied, and being the bully.
First of all, I want to say, Sharon, that was absolutely fantastic. Like every point that Sharon mentioned is so valid and is so true. And to add to what Sharon said from if your child is the bully. So I have one child who is very strong-willed, has a very strong personality, as her teacher tells us every time we have a parent-teacher meeting, kind of very much like her mother. And she tends to want, and I'm kind of paraphrasing the teacher. This particular child of yours always wants people to do things her way, otherwise they're not part of the group. And so when you get that feedback once, twice, and first of all, I think it also starts with us as parents ensuring that we know our children. You need to take that. You need to, as a parent, right from when that child is conceived, or maybe when they're birthed, depends on how you choose to want to look at it. But right from the inception, you need to make an effort, a conscious effort, an intentional effort to know your child. So when we were told this, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary, because we see this at home. And it was, yes, you stick it on your prayer point and you pray for your child's character and you pray for, all the different fruits of the Spirit for that child. But I think practically it was about sitting with our child and just asking questions, open-ended questions that allowed us to see from their perspective why they felt they need to be the way that they are, why they feel they need to be the way that they are, why they feel like they need to force people to either A, want to be their friends, or B, do things that they're doing. So for us, which is something I can't stress enough, it's the communication. It's going back and explaining to that child, and first of all, understanding from their perspective, but then also helping them to see. So we do a lot of role play in our home, because, I have 4 kids, so we have enough to go around. So helping them to see, how their actions could affect other people. And how would you feel if this? And how would you feel if that? And we do a lot of that kind of conversation, and a lot of that, trying to allow them, and obviously being young, see how their actions sometimes could cause, a bit of hurt, a bit of pain, how their words sometimes, and the kind of words that you need to use. So in my house, we have flashcards, of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what we need to do, so that they see it. Because kids are amazing. Like, God did an amazing job with children, because what you put inside of them is what they will give back to you at some point. And if you ensure that you're constantly putting the right things inside, they're seeing the right things, which is why I said this pandemic really put a spotlight on, on our relationship as parents, because kids will see, they will pick up on, well, mommy, you spoke to daddy this way, or daddy, you said this, and they would go outside and do the exact same thing. Well, my mommy said, as my kids will do very often. So I think there's really not a lot to add to what Sharon said, but it all goes back to the communication. Yes, you find out what the root cause is, but then you also then need to then put in place everything that they need to be. So, identify what is wrong, but then fill the house with what is good and what we want good to look like, and ensure that they understand that.
And if I may, I also wanted to say something about that. We've talked about how communication is important. And I know for a lot of us, especially during this COVID thing where we're working from home or we've taken on these responsibilities and we have to take care of the kids and do all these things in terms of their learning, we've gotten so busy that sometimes we don't pick up on the kids and their change in mood or change in behavior or change in, the way they talk, just changes in the kid. Before we even get to the communication part, we need to be super, super, super diligent about being super, super, super aware of our kids and any change in behavior, because sometimes they don't talk because they don't know what to say or how to communicate it. But you can pick up in a mood. Like, when my youngest was dealing with stuff at school, she didn't come and volunteer the information to us. And I was so busy with work and all the things that I had on my plate that, when her change in behavior was happening, I was like, what is it again? It's like, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this. But I had to stop and say, okay, what is going on? There's a change. And figure out a way to, like Sean said, make this environment safe enough where you actually, and by safe means you show that you care. You genuinely want to know what's going on, and it's a safe place. You're not going to reprimand them. You're not going to dismiss them. You're not going to minimize what they say to you when they eventually say it. Don't start with, and I do that a lot. I'm like, me that I went to boarding school, I went to this. If they give you both, you two, you give bus, and this thing, why are you kidding? But you have to just sit down and listen and say, okay, I understand. That must be really tough. That must be really hard for you. There's a lot going on, Otherwise, if they communicate to you the first time and you don't receive it well, or you dismiss it, or you ignore it, or you don't do anything about it, they won't come back to you a second time. And so I feel like that is really important, how we handle that first communication.
Thank you all so much. We posted, thanks Faye for gathering the points. We posted all the points that you guys shared on the YouTube and the Facebook. They are key to helping. I have a child, and I'll use the word Dami used. I have a child that's strong-willed, okay? And just like rightly, like Sheon said, she's been bullied and she's strong-willed. Let's say that. Okay, so that's why I say that I spend a lot of time with her. And like you said, what we pour into the kids is what they're going to give back. So I spend more time pouring into her and pointing out things that she needs to work on and how she needs to relate in, moving forward. So because of time, we'll move past. We have another question that, we would like you guys to shed some light on. How does a parent help a child who's struggling academically? Sometimes we're busy working, we're busy doing so many things, and, we're not, some of us are not on top of the children's work. We just assume that they're getting things done. But how do you help when you find out that your child is struggling academically? Just, quick points on what a parent can do. I'll start with Dami.
Sorry, I was struggling to find my mute button. So very quickly, I think first would be just offer the support, depending on the age of the child. If it's the age where they can reason with you and you can sit and they can look through their reports and you can identify their weak areas, it's about making the child understand that, listen, support is available. We're here to provide the support. How would you like us to support you? What does that look like? And once that's identified, and it's and it's something that you can put in place, whether it's via tutoring, whether it's via group learning, whether it's via learning in a different in a different format. I think once we ask and we hear and we see and it's within our means, then we offer. But I think the initial thing is that initial conversation and that initial communication. And sometimes, like, I have a child who is an all-round student. She's absolutely, we call her the professor. She's absolutely outstandingly brilliant. But there's one particular area, and she didn't see it, and she refused to see it because, after all, I'm an A student in every other area. So why this one area? And it was the process for us was helping her to see the one area. And then the moment it clicked, she understood, and she came and she said, right, this would help, that would help. And it's us, ensuring that we can respond to meet the child at their point of need, not doing what we think would be the best because it might not be received in the way that we want it to be received, but also taking on board whatever the kid says and trying to see how we can then meet each other halfway.
Okay. Cheryl, since you counsel a lot of kids, would you like to?
Okay, so just to add to what Dami has said. So first of all, just like Dami said, have that conversation. Sometimes it might not be academics really that is the problem. It could be psychological, it could be emotional, right? So having that conversation, finding out from them what exactly. Then it's also possible to visit the teachers of the child, to find out exactly what they think. So sometimes the child may be absent-minded in class, and the teacher has found out, or they find out that the whole class, is actually struggling, which is also possible because when my child started math, some form of level of mathematics, he was a bit slow at it, But when I went to meet the teacher, and he said that all of them in class are like that. So I should not worry. By second term, they will catch up. And truthfully, by second term, there was a lot of improvement. So it might be that there's something new, unless you see that, it's a regular occurrence, right? But first of all, find out really if it's academic or psychological or an emotional problem. Visit the teacher, and if he says that it's academic, of course, support, just like Dami has said, with other lessons, we have a lot of lesson teachers here, so maybe lesson teachers, and then whatever support that we can give, to the child. And if not academics, of course, if it's emotional, if it's something you can help out with, or a counselor can help you out with.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And lots of great tips there. I know we're well spent in time. We would just want to wrap this up with really just during this time and any other time. How can we, what tips can you share to help a parent better communicate with their child and to provide that safe haven for children, so that if there's anything that's going on, whether they're struggling academically or they're being bullied or, they're not coping well with COVID, a lot of things going on, or just stressed in general about life. What tips can you share to help parents to navigate that communication with their child? Because it's not always easy, right? We don't always know what the right thing to say, when to say it, how to say it. And so maybe we can just do a round robin, and we'll start with, I'll start with how I'm seeing folks on my screen. I'll start with Tosin, go to Dami, and then Feyi, and then Shil. Just your tips on what has worked well for you, or what you've read about that you think is profound on how we can better help communicate with our kids. Tosin?
Okay. Sorry, am I echoing? Bear with me. I'm trying to turn something off. I think oh, yes. So sorry about that. One thing that has helped me is finding ways to connect with them individually. So I find ways to connect, find out what they like, find out things that, I make them laugh a lot. Okay. I make my kids laugh a lot, in different areas. Okay. I make them laugh a lot, and also find things that, like I said, connect with them, find what they like, and I sit with them, even though I don't like it, but I'll sit with them with the show, or I'll take them somewhere that I don't feel like going, but just so that I can, find ways for them to talk. And then we will sit in the car and we will laugh, we will do different things. Like since my daughter just went off to college, I dropped off. We have FaceTimed only God knows how many times. And we don't necessarily have to say anything, but she would just be there doing something, and then she'll remember something, and then she'll share with me. So I found ways to just connect with them at different times, and that's the way I feel I'm doing my job to connect with them. So I'll just share that.
That's wonderful. Dami?
So I'll give two tips that work for us as a family. The first tip that I'll say to every parent out there is you need to get to know your children. If you have one, get to know your child. If you have more than one, you need to, I can't stress enough how important it is for you to understand the uniqueness of each child, their strengths, their weaknesses. And then the other thing that we do, or that I do, is I start with so when there's an issue, or when there's something that I think doesn't quite feel right in this home, where there's something that's come up with the kids, I start with a blank sheet of paper. And I start with the what does good look like heading. So what do I want? What do we want good to look like in our home concerning this particular issue? And I write it out with my husband, and we kind of do like a brainstorm, and we write what good looks like. Once we know what good looks like, then we start to work backwards to then take steps. So if we know this is the overarching outcome that we want, what do we need to put in place with each child to achieve that, to set the tone in our home, to make this a safe space, to make it a conducive environment for this to foster? How do we become enablers enabling our kids to succeed, to do well, to be confident speakers, to be confident in their abilities and their talents and their. So we do all of that, and then we then start to apply it to how we approach each child. And if it's something that we can share when we have our family devotional, or when we have our family meetings, which our kids call every so often little town hall meetings that we have at home, when we, if it's something that we can share, we share and we say, right, so this is what we want as a family. Can we all sign up to that contract and agree that we want this in this home? This is how we want, our family to be. Right. Okay. And this is what Daddy and I think we need to do to get there. What do you guys think? So that we can all come to a happy place where we then start to walk in that step. So those are my 2 tips.
Awesome.
So I think I'm next. Yeah.
This paper stuff, and you're a teacher at heart. Very admirable.
Listen, I'm a project manager in every area.
I see.
I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed, Dami. But yeah, I mean, I think a few things that Tosi mentioned. I try to do things with my kids that they like. Like my younger one likes to play board games and chess, and all these things. So I try to engage in that way. And also, I try to be open, right? So I don't really do like, oh, I'm mommy, so I'm perfect. No, if I'm worried about something, or if I'm upset, or I also say, I was young, so there's nothing you can do. Like my older one, I think he was really sure before. I mean, when he was younger, that there's nothing that he did that I would not know. Like I was almost like God, because he will always feel like I will always know. So he was quite open. My second one, he's a little bit more shifty, so I have to be creative with him. But it's really like Dami said, you have to know the children. I mean, my 2 are so different, and I have to operate with them differently. So I think being open with them, really getting to know what makes them click, and also not putting too much pressure. So sometimes I know something is wrong, I want to get to the bottom of it, but they're not ready to talk about it. So I'll be like, okay, fine, but I'll still come back. And then I will come back again in another way, and then I find an opening, and eventually, we figure it out. So it's an art. This thing is an art. Huh?
It is an art, and I'm like that too. I'm like, what's the person in the Bible that is like, I won't let go of you till you bless me.
Exactly.
I'm like that with my kids. I will knock them till they're like, okay, this is what is wrong. Like I will ask, I will come back, I will say, okay, hey, I will come back and ask. Don't forget, you're gonna tell me what happened in school today. And I keep going till they're tired of me and they just talk.
Yeah.
So, sure.
Okay, well, so for me, just like everyone else has said, it's about paying attention, to exactly understand who they are and how you can handle each one of them. When they talk about love languages for couples, children actually do have love languages as well, so it's just identifying so that you can just tap, into that their mumu button, so to say, and then be a good example of a good communicator. We have to listen. Sorry, I didn't get your name, the moderator of this question. When we are talking about your child always disturbing you, like, okay, what do you have
Lola.
to say? Lola. So really, we have to be a good example of being a good communicator. We have to listen, listen well, because these children nowadays, they're facing so much pressure. You can't understand, the amount of the unimaginable things that these children are doing nowadays. Wow. Well, I think that's a topic for another day, so we have to listen. What are they saying? What are we hearing? Because they can say something and we are hearing something else, and then how do we respond? When do we respond? Where do we respond? All those things would allow them speak to us, how we handle all these things, what they say to us, how we listen to them, what we hear them say, what they're actually saying, and then we must be their friends. I'm happy that you guys have mentioned how you're friends with your children. We have to be their friend, but be firm, and then not just back alone, and bite, that kind of thing. Then we must earn their trust. When we earn their trust, they'll be willing to speak with us and communicate whatever issue it is that they're having.
Wow, wow, wow. That's awesome. I can't appreciate you guys enough. I remember one couple of times when I would pick my kids up from school, and if they're having a gloomy face, I would literally park the car on the side of the road to tell them how important it is that I need to know what's going on. If they say nothing, we're sitting in that car till they start
They
talking.
speak.
That's how you yeah, I won't leave until you bless me. That's the mama bear type of personality I have. We will sit by that side of the road till this matter is addressed. So I mean, you guys have shared so much. Dami, Shil, Lola, Feyi, God bless you guys. I mean, I was truly blessed. I took tips. Sorry, someone muted. Oh, let me okay. I took tips from everything, and I just want to appreciate all of you. I also want to appreciate everyone that commented, all our audience members, guests. God bless you. This is the end of this show, but guess what? We have another show coming up on September 18th. It's debunking relation myths part 1. So please, we would love for you to join us on that show as well. Again, I want to say thank you to Oluwaseun. I want to say thank you to Dami. I want to say thank you to everyone that joined us. Till next time, ladies, say bye-bye. Oh,
Bye, everyone.
Hello.
We're still live.